Tulsa Titans are those in our city who aren't backing down. They stay positive when things look hard. They lead with integrity, even when it requires sacrifice. They take their family life as serious as their work life. This show features them to teach and inspire the next generation among us. Welcome to Tulsa Titans, highlighting local professionals who are making a difference. Today I've got Chad McLain. Chad, how are you doing?
I'm awesome. Thanks, Kelly.
He's the owner of Graves McLain Law Firm here in Tulsa. He graduated law school here at Tulsa University. He calls them tours of duty. Been on several not-for-profit boards. We were talking about that every not-for-profit, and there's a lot to choose from here in Tulsa. A lot of great opportunity. They need a lawyer. What I like is Tulsa Lawyers for Children. He's very, very passionate and picky. There's children that are taken out of their homes and they need an advocate. Really cool program. So glad to hear you're involved in those things.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're getting into the year, right? What I like to ask every leader, because last year was different. We'll just call it different. We're in a different season. And so as you assess what that difference looks like in your leadership, what are three things you're consuming more of right now? And what are three things you're cutting out?
So I'm consuming more of, I've kind of focused my attention on kind of, I call it energy and education, understanding and controlling the things that I can control and recognizing the things that I can't control. I think we spend a lot of time, at least I do still today, and again, this is a work in progress. We spend a lot of time, effort, and energy trying to control and impact things that we can't. They're out of our control. And so when you can recognize that and control, because I think the reason that's important to me is when you wake up in the morning and you think about what can I accomplish today? Well, there are things that are out of your control. So if you set your goals to accomplish things that you can't control, that involve things that you can't control, then you're going to be a pretty disappointed person, right? There's only a few options that can happen during the day. And so you want to set yourself up for success. And so the things that you can control, try to do the best you can to give the best you can to those things. More time and focus on my children. I think that's, we're talking about kind of business success. And I think that if you are successful in your home life, that usually breeds success. We don't want to be one person in the office and in your business and be a completely different person when you're at home. And then I've devoted and committed to daily and weekly more education for business acumen, specifically with lawyers. In law school, at least when I was there, which seems like 200 years ago, it was only about 20 years ago. They don't teach business. They don't teach you how to run a small business. They teach you how to read law books and figure out legal problems and where to go for resources and things like that. They don't teach you how to run a business. And so that's a huge deficit, as you might imagine, trying to develop a business. And so what most lawyers do is they either go to work for somebody else. If they start their own business, it's one person, sometimes two. And so what we did is we have developed a business, and we're in the business of law, and that is, delivering great customer service. And so I have a voracious appetite to want to learn more, hear people that do things better than I do, and read books about better ways to do things than I do. And did you ask me things that I'm doing less of?
Yeah, when you kind of said that, I mean, I really liked your perspective on that, right? You said the things I can control, and that's healthy to acknowledge. There's nothing wrong with it. There's a lot of things that happened this last year that were out of our control. You and I, off recording, we're talking about that. If we get wrapped into those things, void of action, they just kind of make us an emotional ball. And so we need to concentrate on where our impact really is. That's good.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I want to kind of go into, we talked about, if we can, that work-life balance, because about every professional I meet, they've either run so hard the wrong direction that now they're trying to figure it out. And then every young professional I know, they kind of get trapped. And what I hear from all of them is I'm working 120 hours a week. So can you talk to us about what that looks like, why the why family is important, and then do you have any processes that help you with it?
Well, I mean, it's a constant struggle. Business ownership is business ownership, and some people are fortunate enough to own a business and a business model that that you can, again, going back to the things I can control, things I can't control, where you can flip the switch off and on in a certain time period on a certain day. Our business, and I consider this to be good fortune, is not like that. We have clients that have needs all the time. And so the question is, are you going to flip that switch and answer that client's needs, and or sometimes not answer that client's needs? And of course, we know how that works with relationships. Is if you're not delivering what the customer expects you to deliver when the customer expects you to deliver it, sometimes they will no longer be your customer. And so, same thing with our clients. And so, the work-life balance is something where you have to create expectations, both with your family and with your clients, with your customers. And the expectations are, when you're going to return phone calls. When can you expect me to get done with this project? When can you expect me to get to step one, step two? And I think that won't happen immediately. If I started doing that today, it won't happen today. But if you start in the future creating those kinds of expectations, and we try to do a really good job of creating reasonable expectations, both with our employees in-house and with our clients and future clients, is what can you expect from us, and then deliver higher than those expectations. I think doing that creates, if you do that here and at home, then you're able to, back to the can't control thing, is you're able to control your schedule a little bit more, where you can spend time and have present relationships with the people that live in your home, which is obviously, you're not thinking about, when I'm having a conversation, when I finally am able to have, and my 14-year-old son finally wants to have a conversation with me,
Yeah.
I'm not thinking about, this client's problem from yesterday, or what am I going to do about it tomorrow. I'm actually able to be present for him and with him and soak all that up, because it's a finite experience, right? It's not going to last forever.
No, that's great advice. Expectations are huge. As you can imagine, we're in the tech industry.
Yeah.
So, and we probably battle some of the same things you do. What you do, every little thing you do is pretty complex for people that aren't in law. Same thing
Right.
with IT. And so, we went over this morning. Our expectations go all the way down to time frame, but then we know that the client's not going to understand what this means, so we need to paint the picture for them.
Right.
And that ultimately, like you did, if something comes up, we go, hey, what's our process? We've explained our process, and it kind of takes all the reaction out of
Yep.
everything you do over time. So that's really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Totally. And so, yeah, I mean, you're dealing with people. I always tell people, it's like, you don't, no offense, but we don't speak the same language. This is something I've been doing for 20 years as a lawyer, and almost 30 years as in this industry, handling these kind of cases. And I don't know what you do, but I bet I couldn't do it either. And so, when we're speaking a different language, I know this is your first time, or it might be your second time to do this kind of stuff. That's why you would hand the thing off to me. Same thing with you and your industry is, it's pretty much about relationships, but it's also about people um, wanting to give it to someone they feel more comfortable, taking care of their needs and trusting them to take care of their needs. And once they feel that, and you meet the kind of the timeline expectations, I think that's as good as it gets in a business relationship like that.
Yeah, I agree, because they know it's going to happen. I mean,
Right.
it's not necessarily the angst and the urgency they feel. They just want to know that it's taken care of, because the reality, I'm sure you know this, for the person on the other end of the phone, whoever they are, they have other things going on in their life besides the conversation they're having with you.
That's right. That's exactly right.
I like it too with the expectations, because anytime you drill down into expectations, you're working on excellence in communication.
Right.
I'm finding just say it, with the generation that we're dealing with as they get
Right.
younger, this communication thing's lost, and they want everything to be automated emails that some robot thinks up. And
Right.
it's just not the same thing. People feel better when they're communicated with.
Right. Well, when I was growing up, and really now in my adulthood, is to look somebody in the eye and shake their hand, and in-person meetings, and sitting across the table from people in business environments and making deals. And slowly but surely in the last year has kind of reinforced that, forced it and then reinforced it, is that that's not, to certain generation, that's just not important anymore. Like you said, they're used to looking down at the phones and devices, and it's become, to me, that's impersonal. To them, that's not. It's convenient, and that's the way they communicate, and that's and so you can either say you got to do it my way, and it's my way or the highway, or you can figure out how you can adapt your skill set and your beliefs and what you feel strongly about to what their expectations are. I think the latter is probably the best way to do it, or you might not be in business very much longer. It's there's short-term thinking and long-term thinking. We get into that with juries, with the way jurors think, because percentage of your juror pool is going to be going to think that way. It's like, you got to really get into the psychology of not only they think that way, but why do they think that way? Because that's the lens they're going to see and hear everything you present to them. It's really interesting when we do focus groups, what that sounds like, what that looks like and sounds like.
That is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's changing depending on who's in the jury. I would have never thought about that.
Yeah. It's a big deal.
Yeah. You can't quit learning. I don't think any of us can.
No, it's got to be a constant spout both ways, for sure.
Well, so learning new things, and then I talked about some board work, so volunteering, and then running a business, managing people, family. It can feel like there's a lot on your plate. Is there a specific habit or two that has kind of led you to be successful over this time?
Just with the management of those types of things, is first of all, the decision of whether or not you should, specifically with volunteer work, is the answer is yes. The specific question to me would be, at what level, to what extent. And this is the first time since 2001, so 20 years, almost 20 years, that I have been without some board commitment, volunteer organization commitment on a daily basis. I mean, I still do work in them, but I'm not currently on any board or any executive level position. And so to be able to step back and say, yes, I need to do this, I think it should be a part of my day. The mental and emotional well-being and health and exercise that is for somebody, I think it's almost immeasurable. I think it's super important. From a balance standpoint with all of these things, you just got to stand. This is one thing I'm working on right now, is that our business is much like I would imagine most customer service based businesses are, and that is that there's a constant demand for your time and attention. And how do I block time to do, the production work too? There's technical work that only I can do, or only the lawyers can do. And so you've got to figure that out. You got to be able to budget your time. If you don't, you will literally drive yourself and everybody around you crazy. And so that's you asked about what's one of the things that I've done or do, and that is to try to plan my week. And I've got a lot of opportunity here. I'll admit here, I'll fall on my own sword, but to plan my week ahead, right? There's certain things that are going to come up I can't control. But if I sit down on Sunday and plan my week, don't wait until Monday or Monday afternoon to plan my week, but plan my week on Sunday and have time blocks for certain things and make that known to the people around me, it seems to work. It's not going to work tomorrow or this coming Monday, but if over time, if you are repetitive and consistent in that, you can protect your time in your work environment. And you can also protect your time in your home environment too. You need to go to the gym. you need 30 minutes for meditation, whatever it might be, because there's some decompression that needs to happen there too.
Yeah, self-care.
For sure.
So do you put time with the family? Do you put self-care on your calendar for your team to see?
In the family environment, we try to, I try to do that with my girlfriend. So my girlfriend and I try to do, well, not all of it, but a lot of it we try to do together. Um, and in the mornings, because I'm a little more of an early riser, that's kind of when I do mine, is when I first wake up. So I'll do my individual stuff. But in the afternoon, going on walks and talking about what happened during the day, that's the afternoon stuff. I think that's really important. It's easy if you're both busy to go days, hours, and particularly with kids, to go hours and days, and sometimes even a week, and you really hadn't had a substantive conversation except, are you going to take this one here and go pick this one up there? And it's like you're heading for a problem there. I mean, that's going to be bad.
I agree.
Yeah.
On Sunday, so I do mine Sunday as well. And if I let it slip to Monday because we had sports or something come up, it's just chaos. So I block off 40 minutes to think about all that and and I write my buckets. So my time with God, my time for me, I'm right after that for the self-care, my wife, my kids, and kind of like you were saying, you become kind of like roommates if you don't. Okay, yeah, we've got some time for it, but what are we doing? Like you wouldn't treat your business or a client appointment. That's what really made it clear for me. Like, how hard do I prep for some of these really mentally intense client meetings? But I don't plan the date night. That was kind of my thing. Like when I drew out my bucket and said, well, this bucket's higher, but I work a lot harder on these meetings, right? And so that helps kick me in the rear as well. And then, like you said, so along the lines in a business for setting expectations for clients, calendars, and I know everybody thinks of it like a calendar, but no, if we need to talk about something, we have all of our now Teams meetings and everything laid out throughout the next couple of weeks on there, and we're not allowed to go, got a minute? Because no, you don't. Like talk about the things that we work on are mentally taxing, and they need focus. And all the studies have shown it takes 15 minutes to get back on track if somebody walks through your door. And so that is one of the positives to planning out and then having everybody in the team or in your company on that same plan and organize like that, is you don't just manage everybody's feelings all the time. Right.
That's right. Yeah. Well, and we run into problems where you've got, Joe or Jim might be working on a project, and that's the most important thing in the universe to them right now, but they can't get finished with it until Kellen answers a question or gives them, direction on something. And it's like, well, that's not the most important thing to Kellen right now. Kellen is, he's 100 feet deep on this other project, and for him to pull out and answer your question would cause a major disruption in this other project. And so how do you manage that? I mean, who gets priority? And the answer is whoever is high. I mean, it's terrible to say this, but whoever is higher on the totem pole, right? Whoever's higher on the decision-making tree is going to get priority in that. And so there's work. We talked about this a minute ago. There's work in your office that nobody else in the office can do. You got to do it, whether it's signing stuff or making final decisions or whatever it is. And it's the same thing with us. And your time, my time has to be protected, because if it's not, the business ain't going to work. I mean, it's going to be short-lived,
Yeah, I think some people wrestle with the emotions around what you just said as far as you make the decision, but the ultimate thing is everybody has to stay staffed. Like the ultimate, the extreme ownership's on Chad. If somebody doesn't come in, if the projects don't go right, if I'm not making the decision on the hardest thing, so it really is all on your shoulders for the betterment of the entire group. And that's just the way it has to be.
That's right. I mean, the final decision-making process is in the direction of the business, obviously, is the guys with the name on the sign or the name on the note that started the business, however you want to look at it. In our case, the name's on the sign. And it's like, when it goes well, that's fantastic. When it doesn't go well, it's still got to be fantastic, because that's, the accountability piece on understanding that. And, we talked about this. This is kind of the whole premise of this podcast, and this effort is to let people hear some mistakes that have been made and some signs and brick walls you've run into and bloodied your nose up on, and maybe it'll cause them some pause and not to hit those same kind of brick walls. And it's the same thing with internally with our office. It's like we did that happen to us 6 months ago. How does this happen again? And it's like I am constantly in the mode of training our people to say, okay, well, this is a sign right here. This is a sign of what happened last time. So let's keep on the right course. So it's a constant effort.
Well, with that, so this is the sign. So the processes, but then the core values of the organization, how do you continually distill that through your team? What does that look like for you guys?
So we have, you mentioned kind of planning your week, and we have actually three main, what I'll call anchor meetings. We have on Mondays, we have a staff meeting, and that's kind of I'll call it an educational meeting where we'll talk about a process. We'll talk about, we either need to, it's a reminder most of the time, or it's one where we've had questions on it and it needs to be revisited. We need to work it out, improve it, and update it. And then on Wednesdays, the leadership team meets, and that's the three partners and the practice manager. We talk about numbers. Every Wednesday, we talk about numbers. We talk about personnel issues. We talk about incentive issues, all that sort of stuff. And then on every Friday morning, we have a full staff meeting. And so at each one of those meetings, our core values are not necessarily brought up specifically, but we talk about how we apply those core values, and then the behaviors in those core values, and whatever we're talking about, whatever the interaction with the client was, or the application of the process, whatever that was. And we really hit that hard on Friday morning as we have close to the end of the meeting, we talk specifically about one of the four core values, and then talk about specific behaviors under that. And we typically find a quote and ask people to talk about it. Let's talk about how that, give us an experience you had with this, and talk about it like that way. And so our core values are service, teamwork, accountability, and respect. And we give out star awards to people. We try to do that every week. One of the things we do in the first kind of component of our team meeting is we give out star awards to people that we think have exemplified those core values, and usually with an interaction with a client or on a specific case with another person in the office. And it just teaches people. And I mean, I was, 5 years ago, Dan and I, we've been practicing for a long time, and we kept seeing that we would get what we thought were good people in the office, and we couldn't get them to stay. And there would be a problem, there would be some fight or something like that. And we were like, we've gotten to the point where we have to have a structure for our firm culture. And part of that structure is, what do you mean? What do you stand for? Why are you here? Like, yeah, we're lawyers, and yes, we, help clients, and everybody knows that, but what is the structure? What do you want people to understand that work here? And so we actually hired a practice manager that had HR experience to come in as a consultant to start with, to help us develop our firm culture, our firm values. And she's done an amazing job with the help of our third partner, Rachel Gusman. And it's organic. They've developed over time what they mean and the behaviors, and we revisit them sometimes, but the values have remained the same and how they're applied generally have remained the same. And so I think it's made our firm a place where people really want to work, and when they get here, they don't want to leave. And the whole idea was, I had a friend of mine tell me that we had a problem with people we would hire that weren't delivering what we wanted them to deliver. And it was like, what do we do? How do we, do you keep them and try to make them something they're not? Or do you change them, or do you get rid of them? And so what my friend told me was, it's like, listen, once you create your expectations through your core values and your expectations of them. And you do this in the interview and then the onboarding meeting. It's like you never have to fire another person because they fire themselves. If they can't deliver what you've told them that you've hired them to do, then and firing and terminating are strong words, but it's like we're just not a match.
Right.
I mean, we've all had that in other relationships, right? Like I dated plenty of people in high school and we just weren't matches, right?
Right.
It was like, I don't know what it was, but we're just not matches. You don't like me, my hair's too long, got too big of a nose, whatever it is. Well, you can't do this job. You're not talking to our clients the way we want you to talk to them. This is a repeated thing. I'm not saying you're a bad person, but it's like, we're just not a match. And so anyway, all of that, kind of the foundation was the core values and I call it kind of a philosophy of what we want to deliver, the culture. And then that's the expectation of our team. And our team has done an amazing job at kind of adopting that and recite it just like this. Everybody in the firm can recite what the core values are.
I think it's so important, and you guys figured it out. And I think that's what's so special about small, mid-sized businesses. I'll have to go back and really look and highlight what you just said, because you unpacked a lot. Every person struggle with letting people go. How do I hire right? Well, it's all around culture, and it's all around, do they fit the team culture, and do they really anchor themselves and believe in what our core values are for our business and our people and our team. Because if they don't, one person hurts the whole thing. And then reinforcement, as leaders, and I always thought it too, especially, so we run that men's ministry and we say brotherhood, accountability, and discipleship all the time. Well, it felt like it was ad nauseum to the leaders, so we quit saying it so much. And the guys were like, hey, why aren't you reinforcing this?
Why aren't you saying that?
The people are hungry for it. That's why they're there, is because you live it out and believe it. And so that's the most important. So Chad, I know you have a specific time frame. One last question. I know all of our listeners are readers. You talked about, one of the three things you're consuming more was learning over the season. If your house was burning down and you had to run back in and grab 2 books because they were valuable, you go back through them. What are those books and why?
So two books that come to mind, and I've read both of them in the last year or two. So they're going to be first in time, first in mind, whatever that saying is. A book by Michael Gerber called E-Myth Revisited, and it talks about small businesses and why they fail, why such a large percentage of them fail. And it goes through pretty methodical steps of how to not be a statistic in your small business, and the things that you got to look out for, kind of the stop signs and the yield signs, red light, yellow light stuff. And it just, there's a million books, literally, at least, that you could read on any of these topics. Some of them speak different, they speak different to me than they do to you. That one spoke to me pretty strong. I was in the right place at the right time. There's another one that's a little more, I think, conceptual and philosophical to me. It's called Give and Take by Adam Grant. And it talks about, essentially says that we are either givers or we're takers. It creates something in the middle, but it's the premise of the book is that you're either a giver or a taker. And obviously it defines that, and how understanding that and knowing that, where your personality is and the people around you, will help you in business and in your social relationships. And so I think from a customer service standpoint, that's a huge deal to understand number one, whether you're a giver or a taker, even though mama always told you you're a giver,
Right.
And you can't be a taker because that's bad. You can't be selfish. To understand where you are in that, and then the people around you, it kind of like a DISC assessment, a personality assessment, helps you understand how to communicate with people around you. If you know that someone is a giver and a taker, not just because they're selfish, but it tells you specifically what behaviors to look for. It's a really good book.
That's great. So Chad, if somebody wants, they listen to this podcast and they want to get a hold of you, there's too many ways to reach out to people now. And I know some of the younger professionals are even letting their voicemails fill up, like forcing a direction.
Right.
What's your preferred method of communication?
So phone calls are fine. The phone at the firm is 918-359-6600. And then the easier one, because it's really frustrating. I was talking to my partner this morning. I'd given another lawyer my mobile phone because that's typically what people would do. And she and I have been playing phone tag for like 4 days. We just can't catch each other. So email is great. And then we can establish a mobile phone text, and then we can figure out a time to talk. Email is chad@gravesmclain.com.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, everybody. Kellen, I'm the owner of New Wave Solutions. Happy to have Chad here with us today. Chad, thank you for giving.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.